Hey YouTube, Targetpopper here. This is a Yugoslavian M48 Mauser. The Yugoslavians had a bunch of M24 based rifles that they decided to update in 1947, and that became the standard of M24-47. And then later on they decided they wanted to follow something a little bit closer to the K98 platform. So a year later they adopted the M48, and these were built from the ground up in Yugoslavia. I think production officially started in the 50s sometime. This is a late one, being a BO Mauser. This is one that was intended for export. It's got all the stamped components that it should have, being a BO Mauser. So a lot of the parts like your floor plate, trigger guard, front barrel band, and the follower are all stamped. But anyway, this is just a disassembly video. This will pretty much cover anything that followed the basic K98 pattern. So what I mean by that is pretty much everything up here. This is all pretty much K98 derived. So that's what we're going to focus on. Pretty sure I haven't done a Mauser video before. Not like this, not a disassembly video. So this will be a good time. Anyway, we're going to put the safety in the middle. This is what I call the disassembly safety. Now, if it's actually called that, I don't know. But that's what I call it because that's what you use it for mostly. Withdraw the bolt, swing the lug, withdraw your bolt, completely out of the gun. Upturn the rifle, take a punch. You can use the tip of a bullet, you can use this, you can use another different kind, you can use all sorts of stuff. A pen, if you want to use a pen. Use a pen to do it if you want. And that'll get your floor plate. Now you can take this apart. We'll do that here in a minute once we take the bolt apart and everything. Here's a cleaning rod. We're going to take the cleaning rod out. We're not going to take the sight hood off. The M48s have a particularly tricky sight hood to take on and off. So we're going to leave that alone. Next, what we're going to do is the barrel bands. And I'm going to try to figure out a way to get around you or move you guys. I think we're just going to move you. How about that? Yeah, that'll work. So pretty much, what I like to do is I take a small hammer and a non-marring item. This is just a piece of plastic. I don't know exactly what it is, but a good heavy-duty piece of dowel or something like that would work here. A rubber mallet would be really nice. Pretty much what you're going to do is this spring right here is under a lot of tension. This is probably the worst aspect of the K98, but it makes it soldier-proof. It's pretty hard to take apart in the field. What you're going to do is you're going to push this in. It's a little firm to get started. And you're just going to tap it forward until the nub that was on the spring is underneath that part of the barrel band. Then what you want to do is take a rag to catch that spring, because I've seen a lot of these springs when the barrel band comes forward and releases a spring, I've seen them things shoot across the room, and it's right in line with your eye, so you don't want to be on the receiving end of that. Next we're going to tap the barrel band off. Oops. There we go. Now if my sight hood wasn't on, I could take my barrel band off, but since I'm not taking off my sight hood, my barrel bands are going to stay on the end of the barrel. We can take out our little leaf spring now. Pretty nasty little guy. Next we can take this barrel band and slide that forward. I'm going to move you back to your somewhat original position. Try to at least. There we are. A little herky-jerky. Put this back just a bit. Next we're going to take off the handguard. In order to do this, make sure I've got the small bit. There's a screw right here that you have to take out. So you're going to take this screw out right here. It's pretty small. If you have like a little piece of Tupperware, excuse me, or any little container that you can put your screws and pins in, that'd probably be beneficial to you so you don't lose any. Stand your rear sight straight up, then gently grab and slowly pull the handguard up until you feel the clip back here detach from the barrel. And there's the clip. Kind of like an SMLE. There's 2 wood screws right here that it's not riveted on like an SMLE, but it's the same kind of concept. Don't take those out. They're little wood screws and you don't want to mess up the holes that they go into. Now since we're here, we can take the rear sight off the rifle. Make sure we're still focused in. Okay. This is a 1/16 punch. Actually, what I'm going to do is, there we go. Now the pin isn't bearing on anything. The pin is just there to prevent this from getting knocked out. Because what you can do is, if you land on your rear sight and it pushes down, it'll slide right out and you'll lose your rear sight. So you're not going to be much use without this. Now some of these are pretty stubborn to get out. There it goes. You don't want to break this, so if yours doesn't want to come out right away, I would just leave it in. Spurts a little bit of oil in there if you have to. Now we can actually take the rifle out of the stock. Now on these things there's these little capture screws, like on a K98. I don't engage mine, I just put mine so I can put the screw in and just kind of tighten it up. But yours might be actually used, so you got to line these up right in order to remove them. So I don't mess with the capture screws. They're kind of a dumb idea anyway. Set that there. Okay, got this one. Yep. And there's our rear bolt. Here's our stamped magazine trigger housing. We're not going to take apart the catch for the floor plate. It's spring loaded in there. There's no reason to do it. In fact, they rolled over the edges of the pin, so you can't. Next, kind of bunch up your barrel bands at the end of the muzzle if you didn't take them off. Straight out of the stock. Now we can set the stock aside. Take a good look inside the stock if you want. Now, this is not a compatible stock with something like a K98. The reason being is the K98 action is about 1/4 of an inch. Yeah, about maybe a little bit more than 1/4 of an inch longer than this one, than the action on this rifle here. So, yeah. Scoot forward a little bit. Next, we can take off the trigger. Make sure you can still kind of see. Can you see? Yeah, you can see for the most part. There's this little pin right here that holds your trigger assembly on the rear of the receiver. I'm going to feel it disengage, the one half. I'll put my little cup under there. Oh, come on, let go. There we go. And there is your sear and trigger. Now you can take the spring out and you can put it in your little container. That way you don't lose it. You don't really have to take apart this assembly. You can get at it pretty easily from here. Next, the extractor ejector block. There we are. Now one end of this screw is pretty pointy, so be very careful here. Some are pointier than others. These are only threaded to about right there, so they're not very long-winded. This is just a pin to keep basically everything lined up. And this guy here is the lug that retains the bolt in the receiver, and also, see that pop up? That's your ejector. That's the base, where the base of the cartridge hits and then pops out of the rifle action. So yeah, that's the rifle in a nutshell. Now we can take apart the follower and the floor plate. You're going to pull down on the heel of the spring and pull backwards. There's your follower. You're going to pull up on the heel here and pull it right out. And there's your floor plate. The spring is important, or it is important how you put this back together. There's a little steps on this part. This is this top part. This is where the follower goes on. And the bottom, it's flush all the way. Straight-sided. And then to do the bolt, we're going to look right down. Got to loosen up part of my camera first. Hold on. There we go. The lighting's not going to be great right here, but it is what it is. Now on the K98, Mauser, M48, M24, 47, pretty much any 98 style bolt, there's a little detent right here. You're going to push it down. You can give it a little turn. And then you're just going to go. And the entire assembly comes apart. I don't recommend taking apart the extractor, especially on these Yugoslavian Mausers. Sometimes this little spring separates a little too far, and it can be a pain in the butt to try to push that back together and try to force the extractor back on. You should be able to use a toothbrush, some penetrating oil, even WD-40, anything really, to get in there, some hops number 9 if that's what you have, and just kind of clean in there with your toothbrush, and then just spray it out with some air, and you should be able to clean out from underneath there. Again, I don't recommend taking apart. Some of the other rifles in the family are a little easier to do. Guns like, and they're not 98s, but Spanish Mausers, the Swedish Mauser, a couple of rifles like that are a little easier to do than these ones here. Next, what you're going to do is you're going to take your firing pin. Be very careful here, you don't want to damage it. Put it on a wood top. Hook your thumb over the safety flag. Push straight down. Take the cocking piece, rotate it. Doesn't matter if you go clockwise or counterclockwise. Oops. So you go kind of like that. Then you pull up. There's your firing pin. Then your safety. You know, swing your safety all the way to the safe position and pull it right out. You can take out the little detent here if you want. I typically don't. They stay pretty clean, but I guess we can for the sake of the video. All you gotta do is push it down until the little nubbin right here meets up with that. Then push and gently let it out. And that's it. That's really as far as you need to go with a K98, and you really don't have to do that every time. This is like the initial cleaning stage. You get the rifle, it's covered in Cosmoline and grease, and you want to clean it out. Don't know why I did that. We're going to have to put all that stuff back together, so I should have just left you there. But anyway, this is pretty much what you do on the initial cleaning phase. I don't recommend taking your rifle apart this far every time you want to clean it, because you will put unnecessary wear and tear on the parts. That's basically it. And if you look in here, a lot of these guys are pretty tiny. You know, you don't want to lose them. Some of them are expensive, and some of them are hard to replace, especially if you have a harder to find Mauser. Or if you have a numbers matching K98, and all of a sudden you drop a pin or a screw or something, you just kind of screwed yourself there a little bit. But anyway, we can put all this back together now. We'll do a reassembly of it. It's pretty easy. Just follow along. You take that little detent, put it back in, make sure it all lines up. You can actually use your firing pin if you want. I don't recommend doing it. I'm doing it because it was the handiest thing on the table. There we go. That's lined back up. Take your safety. There's that. Take your firing pin. Put the spring back on. Now make sure your safety flag is standing straight up like this. And here, there's only two ways you can put your firing pin back in. You can put it in this way, or you can flip it around and put it in that way. There's really no way to mess that up. Push that back down onto your wood top. Hook your thumb back over it. Straight down. It's under a lot of spring pressure, but you shouldn't have any problems. And that's that. Now, if your firing pin and safety get into this kind of position here, I'll show you. Oh, hey now. Now, if this kind of happens to you, where it goes decocked, don't worry about it. All you got to do, put that back into the wood, pull down, re-engage the safety halfway. That's it. It's no big deal. In fact, if you really wanted to do it like the German way, this little guy right here, you can hook something and you can grab it and pull. I don't recommend doing that way because if that slips, you can catch yourself and you can give yourself a little cut. Putting it into the wood and pushing straight down is probably the safest and easiest way to do it. But again, be very careful. That's not very thick. And just put that back into the bolt body. And then you'll feel it engage. And that's it. That's it for the bolt. Now we can take our follower. Now remember here, the part with the straight sides is the part that goes on the floor plate. And the part that's got the steps on the top, step, is the part that goes underneath the follower. And that's it. Set these two parts aside. Now what we can do is we can put our, oh, excuse me, I can bring you guys back up to my level. We're going to take our bolt stop and ejector block, put that back into place, dump out all my little parts. And we're going to try to put this back in with our finger. There it goes. We're going to tighten this guy back up here. Next, we're going to put our trigger back on. Don't need that screw. Put our pin right there, put our spring back in. Speaking of not dropping apart, I just dropped apart. But it landed right next to my foot, so I'm okay. Put this back up here like so. Hopefully you can kind of see what I'm doing. Not the easiest thing in the world to do. It didn't want to agree with me. It can be a little bit of a pain. This particular trigger spring is pretty tight. There it goes. And we can take a punch. And finish it. There we are. Now we can do the rear sight. Take our little leaf spring here. fish it back into position. There's that. Now when you put this back in, it's not really anything major, but it's kind of an annoyance. For some odd reason, they numbered both sides. I'm not sure why. I'm sure there's some big Mauser aficionado that knows the exact reason. Make sure you don't put it in upside down by accident. Come on. Get in there. There it is. Next we need our rear sight pin. Where'd my little hammer go? There it is. Next, all we're going to do is take our punch and just not all the way, but just so it's covered by the sight base a little bit. Now the barreled action is reassembled. We can take the stock, put that back up. Line everything. You're probably getting a good view of my shoulder right now. Oh, come on, barrel band. And there we go. Now there's two ways that you can approach this part. You can put your magazine assembly back in, or you can put your handguard and barrel bands back on first. It doesn't really matter what order you go in from here. So we'll just go in with the handguard and barrel bands. You're going to line up this clip with the recess cut into the stock, and you're going to gently start pushing down, because you want to line up your sight base with the hole that's been cut out in the handguard for it. There it is. Next we can take our screw, our handguard retaining screw, get that started by hand. Tighten that up. I'm going to move down the rifle a little bit. Get off of that. Okay, a little motion sickness never killed anybody, as far as I know. When it comes to the barrel bands, if you have a Mauser with a solid barrel band like this, make sure you put it on the correct side. For me, it's going to be on the left side of the rifle. And we can gently start our front barrel band. That to about right there. All right. There. Now our barrel bands have been re-engaged, and since we're up here, we're going to put our cleaning rod back in. Don't use the cleaning rod that comes with the rifle. It's made out of the same material that the barrel's made out of, and you can damage the crown of the rifling. Soldiers were given a little tool that fit over the muzzle of the rifle and guided the cleaning rod without damaging the rifling or without damaging the crown. A lot of these rifles don't come with that tool, so I would just get yourself like a nylon coated rod or a snake or something like that. You live in a first world country and you can obviously afford one of these rifles, so why not afford a proper cleaning kit with it? Trigger guard assembly. Line it up right. There we go. Front screw. Rear screw. And again, I don't mess with the capture screws. There's no reason for them to exist, but they're there. They're more of a hassle than anything. Now I'm not going to snug this up right away. I'm going to get it till I get a little bit of resistance. Okay, then I'm going to go over to this one and do the same. Alright, I'm going to give it a little bit more tension. A little bit more on this one. A little bit more there. And I'm basically just going to keep going back and forth until I'm satisfied with how tight they both are. There you go. Take our follower assembly. Click that back into place. All you gotta do is just push in and push forward. Now, one of the most important pieces, and that's it. That is a Yugoslavian M48 BO or M48, M48A, M48B, whatever. This will work for all of those. This will pretty much work for K98s and again M24, 47s, anything that followed this basic layout and scheme. This will work for.